She'll speak for around 15 minutes and has kindly agreed to take questions. To ask a question, please raise your hand. Wait until the microphone reaches you before stating your name and organisation, followed by your question. So, without further ado, since we are virtually there, it's now my great pleasure, I think, to introduce the Prime Minister. Before she takes the stage, may I pay a tribute on behalf of the CBI and its members to her. 2 years ago, she took on that most difficult of tasks, securing an orderly withdrawal from the European Union. She's carried that task out with resilience, determination and grit. I think everyone would agree with that, whatever their political views. So, Prime Minister, thank you for what, against the odds, you have worked for and achieved in that time. Please join me in giving the Prime Minister a big CBI welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be back with the CBI again. And let me start by thanking Caroline for your leadership of the CBI as Director General, and also welcome John Allen, who's taken up his role as President since I last addressed you. And I know John from his time on the Home Office Supervisory Board, and I know he'll make a fantastic contribution as President. Now, there's one paramount issue facing our country at the moment, and I know it is the #1 concern of the CBI, so let me get right to it. Last week, the Cabinet agreed the terms of the UK's withdrawal from the European Union. We also agreed a draft outline of the political declaration on the future relationship between the UK and the EU. Both documents were the result of many hours of negotiation between the United Kingdom and the European Union. Together, they represent a decisive breakthrough, but they are not the final deal. We now have an intense week of negotiations ahead of us in the run-up to the Special European Council on Sunday. During that time, I expect us to hammer out the full and final details of the framework that will underpin our future relationship, and I'm confident that we can strike a deal at the Council that I can take back to the House of Commons. The core elements of that deal are already in place. The withdrawal agreement has been agreed in full, subject, of course, to final agreement being reached on the future framework. That agreement is a good one for the UK. It fulfills the wishes of the British people as expressed in the 2016 referendum. And I've always had a very clear sense of the outcomes I wanted to deliver for people in these negotiations. Control over our borders by bringing an end to free movement once and for all. Control of our money, so we can decide for ourselves how to spend it and can do so on priorities like the NHS. Control of our laws by ending the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice in the United Kingdom and ensuring that our laws are made and enforced here in this country. Getting us out of those EU programmes that do not work in our interests, like the Common Agricultural Policy and the Common Fisheries Policy. And that is exactly what we are going to deliver. Let me say a little bit more about the first of those items, getting back full control of our borders, because I know that it is an issue of great importance to the British people. The United Kingdom is a country that values the contribution that immigration has made to our society and economy over many years. And in the future, outside the EU, immigration will continue to make a positive contribution to our national life. But the difference will be this. Once we've left the EU, we will be fully in control of who comes here. It will no longer be the case that EU nationals, regardless of the skills or experience they have to offer, can jump the queue ahead of engineers from Sydney or software developers from Delhi. Instead of a system based on where a person is from, we will have one that is built around the talents and skills a person has to offer. Not only will this deliver on the verdict of the referendum, it should lead to greater opportunity for young people in this country to access training and skilled employment. And we want an immigration system for the future that everyone can have confidence in. Yes, a system that works for business, one that allows us to attract the brightest and the best from around the world, more streamlined application and entry processes. And we're already taking action in that regard, introducing the use of e-gates for visitors from the USA, Japan, Australia, New Zealand and Canada. But it also needs to command the confidence of the public by putting them in control of who comes to this country. That's what I'm determined to deliver, and I look forward to working with you to achieve it. So now we've agreed the withdrawal agreement, it's important we focus on the new relationship we want to build with the EU. And that new relationship must set us on the path to a more prosperous future. To do that, it needs to work for jobs right across our economy. Because we're not talking about political theory, but the reality of people's lives and livelihoods. Jobs depend on us getting this right. And what we have agreed unashamedly puts our future economic success and the livelihoods of working families up and down this country first. So we have agreed a transition period to avoid a cliff edge for business and to provide the certainty you need to invest. On goods, the outline future framework agrees to the creation of a comprehensive free trade area with the EU, our biggest and nearest goods market. Zero tariffs, no fees, charges or restrictions across all goods sectors, with an ambitious customs arrangement that respects both sides' legal orders. That is what our businesses need, and that is what my deal will deliver. That is the right thing for the future of our country, because while the world is changing fast, our geography is not. Europe will always be our most proximate goods market, and ensuring we have free-flowing borders is crucial. Skilled jobs rely on it. Take the automotive industry. Since 2010, our manufacturing output has increased by 9%, but in auto manufacturing, the growth has been 60%. Nissan in Sunderland, Jaguar Land Rover in Coventry, Alexander Dennis in Falkirk, Honda in Swindon, Vauxhall at Ellesmere Port, Wright Brus in Ballymena. These firms support tens of thousands of jobs, both directly and indirectly. Often they're at the heart of their local economies. All rely on parts being able to flow across borders to support just-in-time supply chains. The same is true for our food exporters and our supermarkets. The deal proposed will work for all of them and sustain the livelihoods they provide to working people across the UK. But the method that works best for goods would not be the right one for services and investment. A world being made ever smaller by changes in technology presents different opportunities in the services sector, and that requires a different approach. Because the UK is not just a European hub, but a global hub for services, and our future success depends on us continuing to be so. So we have agreed with the EU to negotiate a trading relationship in services more ambitious than any existing free trade agreement. It will deliver a level of liberalisation that goes well beyond WTO terms. All modes of supply will be covered, and it will remove substantially all discrimination in the sectors it covers. Regulatory autonomy will be preserved, but we will each ensure that our approaches are transparent, efficient, and compatible as far as possible, doing all we can to avoid unnecessary regulatory requirements. We will make appropriate arrangements on professional qualifications and right across the board, in digital, in financial services, in intellectual property, in transport, in energy. The agreement provides the certainty businesses need. For the safety of all our people, we have ensured that our close security and intelligence cooperation with the EU will carry on. And for our whole economy, we have worked hard to deliver a deal that puts jobs and livelihoods, prosperity and opportunity first. That is what Brexit should be all about. Getting a good deal that unlocks the opportunity of a brighter future for this country and all our people. Over the last 8 years, our economy has been transformed, and we approach Brexit from a position of recovered strength. Our public finances are in the healthiest state for a decade, with the deficit down by 4/5 and our debt as a share of the economy now falling. And businesses have continued to show their confidence in the British economy. Last month, Amazon announced that it will be opening a new office in Manchester, and they've plans to create 1,000 research and development jobs across the country. Rolls-Royce announced 200 new jobs at their head office and manufacturing plant at Goodwood. British firms won contracts worth £1 billion to support Royal Navy ships, supporting over 700 jobs. And in September, I was at a zero emissions vehicles summit where industry announced over £500 million of investment that will create 1,000 jobs across the UK. And today, Equinix have announced a further £90 million investment in a new data centre to service growing demand for digital financial services in the City of London, bringing their total UK investment to £295 million this financial year, a vote of confidence in its future as the world's premier financial hub. But the most striking economic success story of the last few years has been the jobs miracle that sound economic management has delivered since 2010. Youth unemployment has almost halved. More disabled people are in work than ever before. The female unemployment rate has fallen to a record low, and 1,000 more people have found work every day. Last week, we saw some more excellent employment numbers. A record number of people are now in work, 350,000 more than a year earlier, over 3 million more since 2010. And wages rose by 3.2%, the biggest rise in nearly a decade. Now, I never forget what is behind those numbers. Not figures on a spreadsheet, but real people. It's the young person who's left school or college and swapped their pocket money for a wage they earned themselves by their own hard work. They might still be living at home and can afford to give their parents a little each week towards their board, and maybe even start saving for a place of their own. It might be a parent who's moving off benefits and is able to provide a better quality of life for their family. They could be able to take their first foreign holiday or get a new car. Or an older person who may have given up hope of ever working again, but who accessed training, learned new skills, and now feels the rush of pride that comes with being able to make a contribution and be part of a team again. Or someone with a disability who's faced their whole life being told they didn't have anything to offer in the workplace, who's been helped by the DWP's Disability Confidence Scheme to access a new opportunity. That's the difference that having a job can make. It can provide a sense of purpose and dignity on which a happy life is built. That is what businesses like yours provide to millions of people across the United Kingdom every day. It's why starting a business, growing a business and keeping it thriving and successful are some of the most socially responsible things you can do in life. And it's why the deal we will strike with the EU has securing jobs and prosperity at its heart. Now, I got into politics to help people who want to work hard and do their best to have a fair shot and the chance to get on in life. And I know that businesses have an essential role to play. Businesses can and should be a force for good in our world. But at a time when many are questioning whether free markets and an open trading economy can work for everyone in society, businesses need to do more to win that argument. It's not just a job for politicians. All of you must play your part too, by stepping up to demonstrate that you truly have a stake in the success of this country. Now, the very best way of doing that is by investing in the future of the next generation, by giving them a chance to develop their skills and begin a rewarding career. And the government will work with you every step of the way. When I first became Prime Minister, I immediately identified the need for government to step up and be much more engaged in shaping our economy to be ready for the challenges of the future. And so we set about developing our new modern industrial strategy. At a time of great change and technological transformation, as we pass through a fourth industrial revolution, governments have to think and act strategically, in partnership with business, to strengthen the foundations of productivity and build up our comparative advantages. That means investment in our traditional physical infrastructure, roads, rail, air, and now also broadband. And this government is doing that with record investment. But for the UK, it is also about our knowledge infrastructure and our human talent too. So I want to harness the power and expertise of businesses to transform our skills base and drive up our productivity in the years ahead. We have some of the best universities anywhere in the world, and after 8 years of Conservative education reform, our schools are scaling new heights of achievement. but technical education has not kept pace. So we are transforming it in England through a programme of major and lasting reform. High-quality T-levels will stand alongside A-levels as gold standard qualifications, backed with an extra £500 million a year once fully rolled out. They will represent a step change in quality and ambition for technical education. The average hours a young person spends learning on their vocational course will increase by over 50%, from 600 hours per year to over 900 hours per year. There will be a clear route into higher level technical training and apprenticeships, supported by a reformed apprenticeship levy. New institutes of technology across England will help deliver T-levels, serving key sectors in the locality and helping to drive growth at a local level. And a crucial aspect of the new qualifications will be a high-quality industry placement to help young people gain the experience employers need. Businesses will play a crucial role in delivering these placements, and I want every business leader here to think hard about what opportunities your company can offer to a young person to join your team for up to 3 months. For them, it could be an amazing opportunity to build their skills, learn from your team, and test out what they've learned in an industrial environment. For you, it is an opportunity to build the pipeline of skilled young people coming into your industry, broadening and deepening your skills base. And it's a chance to demonstrate your commitment to the communities in which you do business. And there is much more that business can do. By investing in research and development, you can help the UK become the ideas factory of the future, leading the world in new technology, turning scientific breakthroughs into economic rewards. The government has set an ambitious target of increasing the UK's R&D spend to 2.4% of our national income. Government is doing its bit to achieve that, but we will only succeed if business steps up and plays its part too. In the budget last month, we increased the annual investment allowance from 200,000 to 1 million. It is now for business to make full use of it. By doing more to ensure greater fairness and diversity in the workplace, tackling the gender pay gap, improving BAME representation in the workforce, you can tap into new talent and help restore faith and confidence in business as a great force for social progress. As the gig economy expands, you can ensure that all workers are treated fairly and decently. The CBI is a great partner and champion in making the case for this positive and forward-looking approach. And in all of this, government will be your staunch ally. We all believe in business as a force for good, and I want everyone here to work with me to make the most of the opportunities that lie ahead. And those opportunities are real and substantial. The key to unlocking them is getting a good Brexit deal agreed and delivered over the next few weeks. That is my focus. My job is to get the best deal. Parliament must then examine it and do what is in the national interest. And I know what that deal needs to do. Deliver on the referendum vote by giving us control of our borders, laws and money. Get the UK out of the common agricultural policy and the common fisheries policy. Set us on course for a prosperous future where livelihoods are protected, our security is maintained and our union secured. It was never going to be easy or straightforward, and the final stage was always going to be the toughest. But we have in view a deal that will work for the UK, and let no one be in any doubt, I am determined to deliver it. Thank you. Now we have some time for some questions. I'll take some questions from the media later, but perhaps I could take some questions from business representatives first. Do we have anybody indicating? There's one. sort of dark red paddle number 2.
John Reynolds, CTO from Advanced. We're a great British software and services company, and we're helping over 16,000 businesses in the UK, SMEs, transform their productivity through innovative software and service solutions. What will you do to help UK SMEs and the technology sector to do its bit for the future and the future of prosperity in the UK?
Well, first of all, you may have seen that certain aspects of technology are one of the challenges that we've identified in our modern industrial strategy. And I think what we're doing with, there's a number of ways in which we can approach this. Part of what government needs to do to help those SMEs is make sure that the people they're employing have got the skills that they need to be able to advance that technology. But secondly, I think we need to just create that environment, and that's partly what the modern industrial strategy is about. It's about the work that BEIS is doing with sectors like the technology sector to say what can we put together in terms of a package that is going to ensure that that support is there, not just for the larger businesses, but also for those SMEs. And there are some amazing figures about the number of small companies that are set up here in the UK in the area of technology. Fintech particularly has been an area where there's been an enormous amount of development being done. For us, it's creating the right environment, ensuring the young people have the right skills to be able to take that on. And then it's, great advertisement for your company, if I may say so, sir, from your question. Then it's up to you. I'll take yellow 1.
Prime Minister, on Sunday you proposed to sign a withdrawal agreement, and that agreement is going to lock us into the EU regulations on a permanent basis unless the EU agrees otherwise. Now, this is to ensure we have frictionless trade with the EU, which is about 43% of our goods trade. And we lose 95 billion a year on that deal, whereas the alternative is a rapidly growing market outside the EU where we have huge opportunities. But those opportunities will be lost if you sign that agreement and you lock us into the EU regulatory framework, because the EU have made it absolutely clear they don't want us to be more competitive. And that means we can't improve our productivity, and that means we can't improve our prosperity. So could I ask you to think again about the economics of the whole thing rather than listening to the petitions of the CBI, which is really the Confederation of European Industry?
Well, first of all, you might not be surprised if I say to you that I think the portrayal that you have given of what has been agreed is a little inaccurate in its position. The withdrawal, there are 2 parts to the deal that we're negotiating. The first is the withdrawal agreement, that's the leaving of the EU. And I know there have been concerns there about the backstop issue. The backstop is about ensuring that we can deliver on our commitment to the people of Northern Ireland. The backstop doesn't need to actually ever be used, and neither side wants it to be used. What we need to do is to get the second part of the deal in place, which is the future relationship. And it's that future relationship that has at its core the free trade area with an ambitious customs arrangement. And yes, you're right, I have said that I think it's important for us to see that frictionless trade at the border. But there's an assumption in the question you asked that if we go down that route of having a good trade deal with the EU, we won't be able to have good trade deals around the rest of the world. But we will. What we are doing is negotiating a Britain that is outside a European Union. It makes sense for us to continue to have a good trading relationship with the European Union, which, as I say, is our most proximate market, but also have the freedom which we will have to sign those trade deals around the rest of the world. And there's a lot of interest around the rest of the world, not least from places like Japan and Australia, for us possibly joining the CPTPP. We looked at what we were proposing. We specifically asked ourselves the question, will it enable us to do those trade deals like joining the CPTPP? The answer was yes. Good trade with the EU, good trade around the rest of the world. That's what brings prosperity. That's what brings good jobs to the UK. I'll take red number 3.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Laura Koonsberg, BBC News. Prime Minister... Red number 3.
Fancy seeing you here.
It's strange, isn't it? We see each other so rarely these days. There's nothing much going on. Prime Minister, why should our viewers and listeners believe you that you have struck the right deal when so many of your own colleagues believe it is an intolerable compromise and some of them hate it so much they're trying to force you out along with the deal?
Well, what I would say to your viewers and listeners is don't just listen to the politicians. Listen to what business is saying. Listen to what business that is providing your jobs and ensuring that you have that income that puts food on the table for your family is saying. And business is saying we want a good deal with the EU and we want a good trading relationship with the European Union. I have been very clear, as I've just reiterated in my speech, for your viewers and listeners, that I want to deliver on the Brexit vote, and the deal delivers on the Brexit vote. We'll be out of the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice. Free movement will end once and for all. We won't be sending vast amounts of money to the EU every year. We can spend that money on our priorities like the NHS. We'll be out of the CFP, out of the CAP. But we want to maintain a good trading relationship with the European Union so that jobs are kept here in the UK, so that people's livelihoods are protected. But as I've just said in answer to the previous question, this also gives us the opportunity to strike trade deals around the rest of the world as well, which will further enhance our economy and bring more jobs and prosperity to the UK. Now, I think I saw a green paddle.
You'll be thankful to know I'm not a journalist. I'm actually a vehicle development director for a disruptive EV company that's based in Sweden. We made the decision a few months ago to move our entire R&D activities and a pilot production plant here to the UK, meaning millions of investment over the coming years and new jobs to benefit UK PLC. The hub of innovation and automotive engineering, education and technologies around the Silverstone Technology Cluster and the Midlands at large embraces Industry 4.0. I think everyone needs to be aware of the current issues that we're facing, not just the big one that begins with a capital B. The environmental challenges and issues with climate change and actual effects on health has no borders, no taxation. What I'd like to know is how will the UK help to join up the dots with the rest of the world to embrace more disruptive companies, to bring their industries here to the UK, when our biggest concerns are how we can import and export goods over borders, to enable our companies' vision for sustainable transport and leading technologies being developed here in new energy vehicles and autonomy. I have a little saying of disrupt or die. And I think we're in a case here in the UK where we have so much technology and so much innovation. There are plenty of good news stories, but unfortunately they're just not making it to the press.
Well, there are some of the press here who might like to pick up on your good news story. First of all, great, thank you for the confidence that you're showing in the UK. And what you've picked up there is, of course, if you look at our modern industrial strategy, that whole question of mobility in the future, of the real leading edge that we have as a United Kingdom is going to be crucial for our future and very important to us, as is clean growth. And I think that for too much in the past, there's been this idea that actually you couldn't have a care for the environment, you couldn't look for clean growth, that would automatically damage the economy. Actually, no, you can do both together. And it's innovative technologies and innovative industries like you're talking about that show that you can do that together. And of course, as I've said in answer to other questions, I'm conscious about the issue of transporting goods across borders and trying to make sure that that is as easy as possible, particularly obviously in relation to the European Union. But within our modern industrial strategy, it's exactly what we want to do, is ensure the UK is at the forefront of those great grand challenges that not just the UK but the world faces, and mobility and clean growth are two of those. Red number 3 again.
Romilly Weeks, ITV News.
I did say I'd take some media.
Prime Minister, what do you say to those in your cabinet who want you to go back to the EU and ask for a better deal? And how many ministers can you afford to lose before your position becomes untenable and intolerable?
Well, first of all, we're in the closing stages of negotiating the deal at the moment. As I said earlier, these last days leading up to the European Council, we are finalising the details of the deal. Now, that's focusing crucially on the future relationship and making sure we get that right. But the withdrawal agreement was agreed on the basis that it would only finally be agreed alongside a future relationship. Nothing is agreed until everything is agreed, and we're working hard over these remaining days to ensure that we get that future relationship right, because it's that future relationship that will determine the course of things for years, if not decades, to come. It's that future relationship that determines the trade relationship we're going to have with the European Union, our security relationship with them in the years and decades ahead. And we're focusing on that this week. Nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. I'll take one over here, number 2. There.
Surinder Arora from the Aurora Group, Prime Minister. Couple of points. One, you mentioned, and I'm encouraged about the immigration, that you'd support immigration after the Brexit from Australia or India for skilled labour, but also for unskilled labour. You know, we opened this property nearly 2 years ago, and I said to my team, there'd be no problem getting employment in East London, in this part of the world. And since the Brexit, it has been tough. So I think what we need to do is make sure that we mustn't forget all businesses, because from a GDP perspective, tourism travel brings in excess of 10% of the GDP for the UK. The second point on the Brexit, we can never please everyone. And I think what we need to do from businesses' point of view is move forward. We've made the decision as a nation to come out of Europe. Now we all need to be behind you. We need to do the best we can. You know, we've done so well, getting so far, and we can't please everyone. But let's just get on, and I think you've done an incredible job. And let's just get over the final line and have the destiny in our own hands.
Well, thank you, Surinder. And on the first point that you've made, of course, we need to look carefully at the immigration system for the future. As I say, it will be skills-based. But obviously we want, as I said, to ensure that business can carry on doing its good work here in providing employment here in the UK. The Migration Advisory Committee, the Independent Migration Advisory Committee, of course, said that they did not see a need for a low-skilled route of immigration into the United Kingdom. And obviously we've been looking very carefully at what they have proposed. At the core, I think it's absolutely right that the core of our new immigration system will not be quota-based, but will be skills-based. And I'll take one last red 3.
John Stevens from the Daily Mail. There's discussion today about extending the transition period beyond the end of December 2020. Can you tell business leaders today whether we'll be fully out of the implementation period by the time of the next election in 2022?
Look, I'm clear that we've got an implementation period through to the end of December 2020. Within the withdrawal agreement, there is an option to extend that further as an alternative to putting in place what has come to be known as the backstop for Northern Ireland, because it's also possible to provide for the Northern Irish border through that extension and implementation period. My view is I don't want that even to have to come into place. I want the future relationship to be able to be in place on the 1st of January 2021. If it were the case that there was a short period of time where we needed an interim arrangement, then the UK could choose whether it is that backstop or that extending of the implementation period. But from my point of view, I think it is important that in delivering for the British people that we're out of the implementation period before the next general election. Thank you.
So, Prime Minister, many, many thanks for joining us here today and sharing your views with us at such a momentous time for our country. Your grit, your determination, and your talk of partnership, these are all things that we in the room support you on. Now, Ladies and gentlemen, could we please show our appreciation for the Prime Minister? Thank you. And on to hearing from our next speaker. LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network. It has a unique and privileged perspective on both business sentiment and future business trends. It is my great pleasure to welcome Josh Graff, UK Country Manager and VP EMEA, LinkedIn, to the stage. Thank you.